For its skies may turn to gray. I don't worry o'er the future, for I know what Jesus said. And today I'll walk beside him, for he knows what is ahead. Many things.
Montague Regional High School, Friday afternoon. It's 3:30 and already the hallways are empty. On the wall, a commemorative plaque with the name of a teacher, and there's a picture. Today, few students know and few may care that Byron Carr ever taught here. But those who took his classes do care, and they do remember. Byron Carr was a good, perhaps an inspirational English teacher. Many students were shaped by what he taught them.
We had him for homeroom that year, and he was really involved in the class, like with school spirit, and to get us involved in school spirit and stuff that was going on. He was all there for the students.
I smile when I remember him. He was a wonderful teacher. In some ways, in my life, a parental figure. I just remember him with a lot of love in my heart, and, you know, that's why it's still hard today, you know, to remember.
Byron Carr grew up on a farm, so here in Somerville, at the home of Lorraine and John Van Dyke, he found a second home. Byron helped John around the farm, and Lorraine taught with him at Montague High School. She still refers to him as her second son.
He was very jovial, happy, wonderful to talk to, wonderful to listen to, a real intellectual, as well as lots of fun. And
he liked working around on his farm? He loves it. He loved with flowers and crops. He liked to see crops grow and go in the woods and see trees and everything. Yeah, he was a good farm man.
For a teacher.
For a teacher, you can say that again.
Byron Carr was of average height, handsome, and from a respected family. Yearbook pictures show him smiling slightly, fun-loving poses, a little risque. There are dark shadows under his eyes. In the spring of 1988, his admiring students were getting ready to graduate. The yearbook committee was putting its pictures and quotations together. Suddenly, inexplicably, money collected for the yearbook was missing. One school board trustee confirms it was about $6,000. Byron Carr had chaired that yearbook committee. Eventually, the money was returned, but angry words flew, and Carr left Montague High.
At that time, I just wanted him to know. I knew he was going through a rough period at that time, and I wanted him to know that it didn't make any difference to me what the reasons were that he had left, that, you know, he was still my friend, and he always would be. I think maybe he was ashamed or embarrassed that things happened as they did.
Carr left quickly, and his life never seemed to slow down after that. He had lost his job, he was losing control, and soon he would lose his life. In Charlottetown, Carr immersed himself in friendships he found at parties and bars. His favorite places were Chevy's, the Charlottetown Hotel, and frequently he came here to Pat's Rose and Gray on Richmond Street. Tuesdays were his favorite nights.
Byron was down here that evening, I believe. Or, you know, he might have been floating around talking to different people. But there was probably about 75 people in here.
Pat's is a popular bar. It's where men come to meet women. Men also come here to meet other men. Byron Carr had his own clique of regulars, some straight, some openly gay. Byron enjoyed the companionship of both sexes.
It's very hard for some people that did not know the gay side of his life to even accept the fact of being gay or bisexual. I can fully understand that because that wasn't part of their relationship with him.
Byron's group usually sat at the table over here, the second table from the door. And most of the time they come in, they pulled a lot of chairs in. Sometimes there'd be 4 people, sometimes there'd be 20.
On November the 10th, 1988, a Thursday night, Byron Carr had a candlelight dinner with a woman friend. Then he went home. It was 10:30.
He was the same. He was talking about being out for dinner. And
Lorraine Van Dyke and her husband John dropped by for coffee and stayed until nearly 11:45.
his sister was coming home. He was talking about his sister coming home, and he wanted to go to see her, of course, at his mom's. And his mom phoned, and he did ask if Maida had come home yet, if she had arrived yet. And he was looking forward to seeing his sister and her husband.
You were drinking coffee and there were some phone calls coming in?
Yeah, there's a few phone calls. Like I would mention, there's a good many phone calls. But you say Tom McMillan phoned up like that, and he said he was a strong conservative.
When asked, Tom McMillan couldn't remember meeting Carr, but did know that Byron was one of his poll captains that year. His brother John was a key organizer. Another phone call was from a friend, Melissa Batchelor, urging Carr to come to Pat's to be with the gang. So near midnight, he came to Pat's bar, where owner Keir Kenny was waiting on customers.
It was happy. Everybody was having a great time. Music was playing, and people were partying and laughing and carrying on. And they were getting ready. That group of people were getting ready to go bar hopping, which was not an uncommon thing, you know.
That night, Byron's friends included Ted Gallant, a shy Charlottetown garage attendant, and Owen Elward, a school teacher and choir director. Both were at Pat's bar, and things were starting to get strange.
It was almost like a full moon, though. There were a lot of strange people around that night, and you know, there were a few people that one fellow who came in and all dressed in black with a black hat on, and my brother Roger accosted him like he does to most of the customers, and started giving him a hard time about his attire. And he said, you know, what are you supposed to be, a spy or something? And the fellow, they had words, and the fellow ended up leaving.
That man in black was Ernie Much, shown here in a high school picture. He grew up in Hazelbrook. Soon after that, Carr, Ted Gallant, and Owen Elward went to a small, seedy bar called Bud's. Back then, it was a hole-in-the-wall drinking establishment. Today, it's just an empty room behind a shuttered plate glass window. But that night, Owen noticed someone staring at him, he says. And there again was the man in black, Ernie Much, sometimes known as Danny. Owen recalls Byron saying, "Oh, I know him, he's a really nice guy," and Carr calling him over. Eventually, they all ended up here at Chevy's. Ernie Much split from the group. The others left the bar well after 2. Carr drove Ted and Owen to his home on Lapthorne Avenue. Ted fell asleep, and Owen and Byron talked for a while. When they wanted to leave, Byron insisted that they stay the night. It was the only time he'd ever made such a request. But Owen Elward was leaving for Halifax in the morning. He had to go home. Owen woke Ted. They left. It was about 3:30, the morning of November the 11th, 1988.
When I'm walking the block, you know, not only my eyes are wide open and observing all I can, but my ears are listening for voices in the distance, coming up the street or around the corners and whatnot.
This is Charlottetown's gay strip. There's a whole different society out here, and Cliff Peters knows the rules.
You can meet anyone, really. I mean, it's not just gay men that are out here. There's married men, but mostly it is men. And you know, some people come here specifically for the sex. You know, they come here looking to meet someone to go home with or go somewheres with and have sex. There's other people that use it as a social gathering spot, believe it or not.
Around these blocks, gay men circle in cars. Other men cruise the streets. They find mystery, uncomplicated sex, and sometimes danger. Byron Carr would often come to these streets late at night or early in the morning after all his friends had gone home.
Yeah, he was a risk taker. As far as maybe some of the people that he hung out with. And I think a lot of his close friends would say that. And sometimes maybe it made some of us feel uncomfortable.
Did you ever worry about him?
All the time. All the time. Yeah.
No one really knows what happened to Byron Carr after 3:30 a.m. that Friday morning on Remembrance Day 5 years ago. For some reason he had changed his clothes. Perhaps he had gone out again. Maybe he was in bed and got up to answer the door. Whatever the reason, he was found the next day murdered in his bedroom.
Up to center. A lead pass for Berg, but just a little late.
5 years have passed. The Carr family is gathered for Thanksgiving dinner at their parents' home in Harrington. They've never stopped wondering about the killer who is still at large. The parents feel the presence of a menacing shadow that stalks their home. Daughter Maida Feeling sits on a Chesterfield that was once Byron's. She tells us the couch brings her closer to Byron, and it comforts her as she speaks and recalls her eerie premonition.
The curtains were all pulled, car was in the driveway, like, you know, we knew.
You knew what? You knew what?
I was expecting to find him dead.
You were?
Not the way that we did, certainly, but I just knew. I don't know, I can't even describe that. You know, I said, like, the front door was locked, and we went around all the windows, and they were locked, and all the curtains were closed, and I just said to Wally, well, we'll break the basement window, like we have to get in. I mean, that's... So Wally went around back, and the back door was open. And so he went in and let me in the front door, and we found Byron. At first, we didn't see the knife. At first. And I think it was kind of, we were just standing in the hallway at first, and I just went to the phone and we called an ambulance, and then when we took another look and saw the knife and everything, then I just went back to the phone and called, well, I just called the operator, and she got the police. I didn't know the police number. And we called the police, and they were there within 5 minutes or so.
Immediately, police had a suspect in mind.
They said a name there in front of me that morning. They said, it looks like so-and-so's been at it again. And, you know, and they just talked about it among themselves, but like I was sitting right there with them.
Police concluded that that man had an airtight alibi, that he was in Montreal at the time of the murder. But two people have told the CBC they saw him in Charlottetown the weekend of Carr's death. At the time of the murder, Charlottetown Police brought in the RCMP forensic unit from Sackville, New Brunswick. The family was told that within 24 hours they would have their man. They were wrong.
Good to meet you, gentlemen.
Is there anything you can tell us? Jim, why wouldn't you talk to us about the Byron Carr case? Anything at all? It's been 5 years. Is there anything you can tell us? Can you explain to us why you...
I already talked to your producer. End of story, gentlemen.
Chief, it's been 5 years.
Good evening.
5 years later, Charlottetown Police Chief Donald Webster won't discuss Carr's murder publicly. He says it's out of consideration for the family. The silence is particularly puzzling to the gay community.
Why is the case gone unsolved? What are they doing about it? Are the files closed? Will it ever be solved? are they treating it as, oh, well, it's, you know, it's just another faggot gone down the drain, one less to worry about? Or are there people that back there who really tried, and who's trying now? Why isn't the case solved?
Byron Carr was strangled with a towel in an apparent rough sex encounter with another man. The practice is called erotic strangulation. The shutting off of the blood supply to the brain heightens the sensation of orgasm.
I can't imagine myself letting someone put a towel around my throat and strangle me just for the pleasure of a sexual act, someone that I picked up off the street. I don't think most people would either.
Seems it would have to be somebody you trusted a lot or knew well, unless you like the danger of it.
Unless?
There was no evidence of a struggle. Byron Carr may have known his killer, trusted him, even shared a drink with him just shortly before he died. Carr's body was desecrated with a kitchen knife. It was like some vicious ritual. There were cigarette burns, mutilation, and semen everywhere. One close family friend called it an orgy gone crazy. The police have always understated the ferocity of this attack. There was considerable forensic evidence at the scene. There were the 2 drinking glasses, but police couldn't find any fingerprints. Someone left a sweater behind. Byron's sister still worries that not enough care was taken to protect the crime scene.
I mean, my first thoughts when we found him were, don't touch anything. Like, you know, it's get outside the house, don't touch anything. And that was just my first instinct. But I remember thinking that, you know, they just came in, they were walking in and out of the bedroom, the hallway, the kitchen. They were just kind of all milling around, and, you know, none of them really taking charge or anything. And actually they handed me an ashtray that, you know, with cigarette butts in it from the night before for me to use. And, you know, I said to them about, you know, I'd rather not use that one.
But a forensic expert hired by the family backs the police, saying they did an excellent job in this case. The most crucial evidence left behind by the killer was a sample of his handwriting. He had scrawled on the wall the message, "I will kill again." The police now have a psychological profile of the murderer, a repressed homosexual, very dangerous, and likely to kill again.
My impression was that it was swapping partners and whatnot, because even though PEI is a close-knit community and they say it doesn't go on there are groups of people that are swingers on Prince Edward Island.
This is the electronically distorted voice of someone too afraid to be identified. In 1987, a year before his death, Byron Carr propositioned this person to attend sex parties at his house. He was turned down.
Well, he talked a few times before about that. It's where men and women got together, shared sexual escapades.
Byron told this person that some prominent people would attend.
So it was very clear. He was very upfront about it. He didn't try to hide anything, and it was the invitation to go to a swinging party.
And there was more. Occasionally, the sessions were videotaped.
He mentioned at one time that there was videotapes being taken and sometimes some pictures.
Privately, Charlottetown Police will say that they've checked out this and many other leads, including one that placed a former high-ranking police officer at these parties. Tapes or no tapes, it's pretty clear that Byron flirted with danger, a side of his nature he kept hidden from his family.
The only thing that really stands out in my mind, like maybe during those last few months, was Byron telling me about this man who would routinely phone him, who it appeared wanted some sort of relationship, be it long-term, short-term, I don't know. But that Byron was not comfortable being associated with this person. And I remember one evening where Byron said he was just lying on the couch watching television, and he fell asleep. And when he woke up, this man was in his house, you know. And that kind of spooked him a bit, you know, as it would anybody, you know. it appeared that, you know, he was harmless and, you know, just wanted to come in and have a few beers sort of thing. But that's just one thing that, I guess maybe it's always in the back of your mind, well, did it have anything to do with what happened in the end? I don't know. I don't know. So I guess maybe as much as of a risk taker that he was, there was also part of him that feared a lot as well.
Shortly before he died, something troubled Byron. His friends noticed it, so did his sister, Maida.
He just said he was tired of teaching, and you know, and it's that, and then our grandmother died in July, and I just kind of put it down to that, but I wish now I would have pushed more and talked to him more.
Byron Carr was killed between 3:30 and 9 a.m. Friday morning. A boarder who lived in Carr's house dropped by to pick up some clothes and left, not knowing that Byron lay dead in his own room. Coincidentally, sometime that day or Saturday before the body was found, Tom McMillan campaigned on Byron Street. He left his calling card on Carr's front door.
I said, you know, why are you wearing a gun? And he...
The day Carr's body was discovered, Ernie Much came back to Pat's bar, this time wearing a shoulder holster and a pellet gun.
He told me that he was a licensed private detective, so we had a phone in the kitchen. I went in the kitchen and called the police and asked them if this was normal. And they said no, it wasn't, but they were tied up at that time. There had been a homicide. And
Police interrogated, polygraphed, and released Ernie Much. Ted Gallant was interviewed by the police. So was Owen Elward.
Yes?
Neither would grant a television interview. Tell us about what happened that night.
As far as I'm concerned, this is a matter that's under police investigation, and I have no comment.
But you were with him, and it's been 5 years, and nothing has happened here.
That's true. It's still under investigation.
And you don't want to talk about it?
And I won't talk about it.
Absolutely not. This case has never made it to court. Several sources close to the investigation say they think they know who the killer is. But there's never been enough evidence to charge anyone. Yet the police have never done any DNA testing which could conclusively link semen samples to any of their suspects. Members of the Carr family have been harassed by anonymous phone calls, by attempted break-ins. Even once a kitchen knife, not unlike that one found on the murder scene, was left on Maida Fielding's balcony. There are many curious things about Byron Carr's death. Why did he need $6,000 so badly that he betrayed the students he cared so much about? Who came to his door early that Friday morning? It had to be someone he trusted, but how many were there? And what about the swinging parties, the prominent people, the videotaping? How much did the police know? And why, with a murderer at large, have they shut the public out? Most puzzling, who would want Byron Carr dead? What did he know? Who did he cross?
I think the person should pay for what they've done to Byron. They've taken his life. They've taken a big part of our family's life for 5 years. You can't even describe how it's changed us all. It's the sleepless nights. There's still sleepless nights. I mean, it's something that'll never go away, and I think the person has taken Byron from us for 5 years, and he's been walking around with his family, with his friends, and I really think he should pay.
Could have belonged.
And it meant the icing. No, they wave off the icing.